The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched before Elena Vasquez like a vast arena. Thousands of alien eyes watched her from every direction. Some glowed with inner light, others reflected the chamber's crystal walls like mirrors. The air hummed with translator devices working overtime to convert her words into hundreds of different languages. Elena stood alone at the center of the circular chamber. Her simple blue uniform looked plain next to the elaborate robes and biosuits of the council members. She had served as Earth's ambassador for 12 years. Today would be her last day in this role. Above her, the ethereal overseers floated in their energy bubbles. Their bodies looked like living smoke held together by will alone. They had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years. To them, humans were barely more than children playing with fire. "The motion passes," announced Overseer Prime Zalthus, his voice echoing from every speaker in the chamber. "Humanity will be restricted to their current 15 worlds. No new colonies will be permitted. All human vessels must carry council observers. All human research must be approved by council science teams." Elena felt her jaw tighten. The vote had been 847 in favor, 23 against with 156 abstentions. Even their few allies had abandoned them when it mattered most. The Zephyrian delegate, a towering crystal being that sparkled with inner fire, spoke next. "These restrictions are for your own good, humans. Your species moves too fast, takes too many risks. You need guidance from those who have walked the stars longer than your world has existed." Laughter rippled through parts of the chamber. The collect representatives buzzed with shared amusement, their hive mind finding human ambition amusing. They had evolved beyond individual thought centuries ago. To them, human independence was a dangerous flaw. Elena raised her hand. The chamber fell silent. Protocol demanded she be allowed to respond. "Honored council members," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "You have made your decision clear. You see us as children who need constant watching. You believe we are too young, too reckless, too dangerous to be trusted with our own future." She paused, letting her words sink in. Translator devices buzzed as they converted her speech into clicks, whistles, telepathic pulses, and chemical signals. "But you have forgotten something important. Children grow up. And when they do, they leave home." A murmur ran through the chamber. Several council members leaned forward in their seats. The ethereal overseer's energy forms flickered with what might have been surprise. Elena reached into her jacket and pulled out a data pad. She held it high for all to see. "Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We reject your restrictions, your observers, and your guidance. Humanity will find its own path among the stars." The chamber erupted in noise. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages. The collect buzzed louder, their shared thoughts creating a storm of sound. Energy weapons powered up as security forces moved to surround Elena. Overseer Prime Zalthus raised his hand for silence. His voice boomed through the chamber when he spoke. "You cannot survive without us, human. Your technology is primitive. Your ships are slow. Your colonies depend on council trade routes for survival. This is not independence, this is suicide." Elena smiled. It was not a happy expression, perhaps, but it will be our choice to make. "Not yours." She pressed a button on her datapad. Throughout the galaxy, every human colony, station, and ship received the same message at the exact same moment. The withdrawal had begun. The first ships left within hours. Human colonies across council space started packing their essential supplies. They abandoned their homes, their businesses, their carefully built lives. Some aliens tried to stop them, but the humans had prepared for this possibility. They had legal documents, backup plans, and the determination of a species that had decided to bet everything on freedom. The council members watched the early reports with growing confusion. They had expected anger, negotiation, maybe even violence. They had not expected such organized, calm withdrawal. "Where will they go?" asked the Zephyrian delegate. "The Outer Rim territories are worthless. No resources worth mining, no habitable worlds, nothing but empty space and radiation. Let them find out the hard way," laughed a collect submind. "They will come crawling back within a standard year, begging for readmission." But Elena was already gone. Her shuttle had launched during the chaos in the chamber. By the time the council restored order, she was aboard the human transport ship New Horizons, heading for the edge of known space. In her quarters, Elena recorded a final message to Earth. Her hands shook slightly as she spoke to the camera. "To my fellow humans, wherever you are in the galaxy tonight, yes, we are leaving behind everything we built here. Yes, we are heading into unknown space with limited resources and no guarantees. But we are heading there as free people, not as pets in someone else's zoo. She paused, thinking of her daughter back on Earth, her grandchildren who would grow up in whatever new world humanity carved out for itself. The Council thinks we need their protection, their wisdom, their permission to exist. They are wrong. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters that would have destroyed most species. We reached the stars with chemical rockets and nuclear fire. We will find a way to thrive because that is what humans do. Over the following months, the great exodus continued. Human colonies throughout Council space emptied out like water draining from a broken tank. Alien observers reported the same scene everywhere. Humans taking only what they could carry, leaving behind infrastructure and equipment worth trillions of credits. The Council passed emergency measures offering incentives for humans to stay. They reduced the restrictions, offered better trade deals, even granted humans 2 full voting seats in the assembly. But the humans kept leaving. Some species tried to profit from the exodus. They moved into abandoned human settlements, took over human businesses, claimed human mining rights. But they found the humans had been more thorough than expected. Every computer system had been wiped clean. Every piece of advanced equipment had been stripped down to basic components. Every database had been encrypted beyond breaking. The humans were not just leaving, they were taking their knowledge with them. By the end of the first year, fewer than 1 million humans remained in Council space. Most were diplomats and traders wrapping up final business. The great human colonies of New Geneva, Port Armstrong, and Haven's Rest stood empty, their domed cities echoing with the footsteps of alien scavengers. The Council congratulated itself on maintaining order during the transition. Some members privately admitted they would miss human art and music, but most agreed the galaxy would be more stable without such an unpredictable species. In the vast databases of Council intelligence, analysts filed their final reports on humanity. The conclusion was unanimous. The human experiment in galactic civilization had failed. Their withdrawal to the Outer Rim was an admission of defeat. Within a generation they would either die out or come crawling back, ready to accept whatever terms the Council offered. The analysts were wrong about many things, but they were especially wrong about one crucial detail. They assumed humanity was retreating. Humanity was not retreating. They were regrouping. And in the cold, empty reaches of space that the Council considered worthless, something new was about to begin. 50 years had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy had found its rhythm again. Council meetings ran more smoothly without human delegates asking uncomfortable questions or proposing impossible projects. Trade flowed along established routes that had worked for thousands of years. The younger species fell in line more easily without humans encouraging them to push boundaries. Overseer Prime Zalthus reviewed the weekly reports from his floating chamber high above the Council world. Resource conflicts were down 18% from pre-Exodus levels. Territorial disputes had decreased by 12%. Even piracy had become more predictable, following patterns established over centuries. The galaxy is more stable, he told his aide, a young ethereal named Kolneth. The human experiment taught us valuable lessons about the dangers of unguided ambition. Kolneth pulsed agreement through the energy field that connected all ethereals. But privately, he wondered about the empty spaces on the galactic maps where human colonies once existed. Those regions had become dead zones, marked as not for navigation after a series of unexplained incidents. The first incident had occurred 23 years ago. A Collect exploration vessel investigating abandoned human mining equipment simply vanished. No distress signal, no debris, no trace of what happened. The ship's last transmission showed normal readings from all systems. Since then, 47 ships had disappeared in what spacers now called the dead zones. The areas roughly matched where human settlements used to exist, but Council scientists found no connection. Space was vast and dangerous. Ships had always gone missing. Commander Thexara of the Zephyrian fleet pulled up the latest casualty reports on her crystal display. Another merchant vessel had vanished near the former human colony of Port Armstrong. The ship's cargo of rare metals was worth more than most planets' yearly income. Post-navigation warnings, she ordered her subordinate. No vessels should approach former human territories without full escort. Commander, her aide asked carefully, do you think the humans might still be active in those regions? Texara's crystal form flickered with what passed for laughter among her people. Impossible. Our long-range sensors show nothing but empty space. Besides, humans lack the technology to survive in those hostile regions for 50 years. Their ships were barely capable of interstellar travel. What the sensors could not detect was the carefully hidden network of observation posts scattered throughout the dead zones. Human technology had indeed advanced, but in directions the Council had never imagined possible. Dr. Sarah Chen floated in the zero-gravity laboratory of Research Station Omega, one of dozens of hidden facilities in the Outer Rim. Around her, holographic displays showed the molecular structure of materials that technically should not exist. Her team had learned to manipulate matter at the quantum level, creating substances that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The Council probe passed within 50 kilometers of our position, reported her assistant, Dr. James Okafor. They detected nothing, Sarah nodded. The phase shift technology had been their first major breakthrough after leaving Council space. By vibrating their facilities at specific frequencies, they could shift them slightly out of normal spacetime. To any observer, the stations simply were not there. What about the merchant vessel? She asked. Intercepted and redirected to Processing Station 7. The crew never knew what happened. They will remember suffering engine failure and limping home empty-handed. The human method was subtle but effective. Ships entering the dead zones encountered what appeared to be natural hazards: solar flares, magnetic storms, equipment failures. In reality, human intervention ships using advanced stealth technology guided them away from sensitive areas. When necessary, they used memory modification techniques to ensure the crews reported nothing unusual. The technique had taken years to perfect. Early attempts had been too obvious, leaving traces the Council might have noticed. But human science had learned to work within natural patterns, making their presence invisible even to themselves. Meanwhile, deep in the Outer Rim territories, humanity had built something unprecedented. Colony ships that had left Council space as refugees had become the foundation of a new kind of civilization. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of New Horizons City, watching construction ships assemble the latest addition to their growing network. The city existed in a pocket of folded spacetime, technically occupying the same coordinates as an empty asteroid field. To any outside observer, this region contained nothing but space dust and radiation. Population report, Captain? Asked her second in command. We passed 100 million citizens last month, Elena replied. 15 major cities, 43 research stations, and over 200 mobile platforms. Growth rate is steady at 8% annually. The numbers would have shocked the Council, not just because humanity had survived, but because they had thrived beyond anything thought possible. The Outer Rim territories that the Council considered worthless had become humanity's greatest advantage. Free from Council restrictions, human scientists had pursued research paths considered too dangerous or impossible by galactic civilization. They studied black holes up close, experimented with time dilation fields, and made contact with entities that existed in parallel dimensions. Each breakthrough led to greater ones. The isolation had forced them to become completely self-sufficient. They could not rely on Council trade routes or established technology. Every tool, every system, every solution had to be created from scratch. The pressure had turned them into a species of inventors and innovators. Dr. Michael Santos reviewed the latest reports from the dimensional research teams. They had made contact with 17 parallel versions of the galaxy, each slightly different from their own. Some contained no intelligent life at all. Others were dominated by species that had never heard of the Galactic Council. The implications are staggering, he told his research partner, Dr. Lisa Wang. If we can perfect dimensional travel, resources become unlimited. We could access materials and energy from empty universe versions of our galaxy. The Council would never believe it, Lisa replied. Their science is based on the assumption that this universe is all there is. They cannot even imagine what we have discovered. That assumption was about to be tested. Council long-range monitoring stations had begun detecting strange energy readings from the Outer Rim. The signals did not match any known technology, but they were clearly artificial. Something was happening in the dead zones, something the Council's science could not explain. Admiral Vextar of the Combined Fleet received orders to investigate personally. His battle group consisted of 12 of the Council's most advanced ships, equipped with the latest sensors and crewed by experts from every major species. Approach Vector 77 Mark IV, he ordered his navigation officer. Full passive scans only. We observe, we record, we report. No aggressive actions without direct authorization. The fleet moved carefully into the dead zone, following the trail of energy readings. Their sensors detected nothing unusual at first. Empty space, background radiation, the occasional asteroid cluster. But the energy signatures grew stronger as they advanced. Then their instruments began registering impossible readings. Space itself seemed to be folded and twisted in ways that violated basic physics. Energy sources appeared and disappeared without explanation. Most disturbing of all, their sensors occasionally detected massive structures that vanished when they tried to focus on them. "Admiral," reported his science officer, a nervous collect named Sector. "The readings suggest some kind of space-time manipulation on a massive scale. But such technology is purely theoretical. No known species has achieved anything close to this level of capability." Admiral Vextar studied the data with growing unease. The energy patterns were too complex, too organized to be natural phenomena. Something was definitely out here. Something that had learned to hide from the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. "Continue monitoring," he ordered, "and prepare a full report for the Council. They need to know what we have found." What Admiral Vextar did not know was that his fleet had been under observation since the moment they entered the dead zone. Human ships, invisible to Council sensors, shadowed their every movement. If the Admiral had made any aggressive moves, his fleet would have simply vanished like so many others. But the humans were content to let the Council discover just enough to worry them. The time for hiding was almost over. Soon the galaxy would learn what had become of the species they had driven away. The silence was about to end. The exploration vessel Swift Current had been searching the outer rim for 6 months when they found the derelict ship. Captain Mordak of the Zephyrian fleet studied the massive hulk through his ship's sensors. The vessel was clearly artificial, but built from materials that registered as both solid matter and pure energy at the same time. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal while maintaining a rigid structure. "Unknown design," reported his science officer Janala. "The construction techniques do not match any known species in our databases. The power signature is unusual." "Unusual how?" Mordak asked. Janala's crystal form flickered with uncertainty. "The ship appears to be drawing energy from what our sensors register as empty space. That should be impossible." The Swift Current had been assigned to investigate the growing number of strange reports from the dead zones. Ships detecting impossible energy readings, sensors showing structures that vanished when examined closely, and the persistent rumors among spacers that something new was moving in the darkness between stars. "Life signs?" Mordak inquired. "Negative. The ship appears to be abandoned. But Captain, the design suggests technology far beyond current galactic capabilities. The Council Science Division will want to examine this." Mordak made his decision. They would board the vessel and conduct a preliminary investigation. If it proved valuable, they would call for a full research team. The boarding party consisted of 6 crew members in full environmental suits. They used magnetic clamps to attach to the strange ship's hull and cut through what they expected to be an airlock. Instead, their cutting tools passed through the hull material as if it were not there. "Perimeter breach impossible," reported the boarding team leader. "The hull is solid to sensors but permeable to matter. Request instructions." Before Mordak could respond, a section of the hull simply opened like a flower blooming. Air pressure equalized instantly, suggesting the ship had been maintaining a habitable atmosphere despite showing no life signs. The TIE boarding team found themselves in corridors that seemed to extend far beyond what the ship's external dimensions should allow. The walls glowed with soft light that had no visible source. Most unsettling of all, their instruments detected gravity pointing in multiple directions at once, yet they had no trouble walking normally. "This technology is completely outside our understanding," whispered one of the team members, a young collect researcher named Ticknor. "The spatial manipulation alone suggests mastery of dimensional physics that we have only theorized about." They made their way toward what their scans indicated was the ship's control center. Along the way, they passed rooms filled with equipment that defied identification, machines that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, displays showing mathematical formulas that their translation devices could not parse. and storage chambers containing materials that registered as every element on the periodic table at the same time. The control room was a sphere of flowing light, suspended in what appeared to be empty space. As they approached, the light condensed into solid matter, forming a bridge that extended to meet them. "Welcome aboard the Wanderer." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. The boarding team spun around, weapons drawn, but saw no one. "Please do not be alarmed. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Dimensional Fleet. I have been waiting for you." A figure materialized on the bridge before them. She appeared human, but her clothes were made from the same flowing materials as the ship itself. Her eyes held depths that seemed to reflect starlight from galaxies they had never seen. The boarding team leader, Commander Seklon, stepped forward. "You are human? That is impossible. Humans lack the technology to build vessels like this." Sarah smiled. "Commander, your information is 50 years out of date. Many things have become possible since then. How are you alive?" asked Ticknor, his voice shaking. "Our sensors detected no life signs. This ship registered as completely empty. Your sensors are designed to detect life as the Council understands it. We have learned to exist in ways that your science considers impossible." Sarah gestured, and the control room filled with holographic displays showing star maps unlike anything they had seen. The map showed the galaxy, but with additional layers of reality overlaid on normal space. Dimensions folded through dimensions, creating pathways between distant stars that bypassed normal space entirely. "We call it the Deep Network," Sarah explained. "Humanity has built a civilization that exists primarily in folded spacetime. Your ships pass through our territories constantly without knowing it, because we exist slightly beside reality as you understand it." Commander Seklon felt his training crumble before this revelation. "The Council must be informed immediately. Technology like this could revolutionize galactic civilization." "Could it?" Sarah asked. The Council had 50 years to develop this technology themselves. Instead, they continued building bigger versions of the same old ships, using the same old methods, thinking the same old thoughts. She walked to one of the displays and called up images of human cities that existed in folded space, research stations that drew power from parallel dimensions, and ships that could travel between galaxies in moments by stepping outside the normal universe. "We learned something important during our exile, Commander. Innovation requires freedom to fail, to experiment, to pursue ideas that seem impossible. The Council's approach to science is based on maintaining stability and avoiding risk. That approach cannot produce breakthrough discoveries." Ticknor stared at the displays with growing wonder and fear. "How many humans are there? Where are your worlds? We have grown far beyond what we were when we left Council space. Our population numbers in the billions, spread across 17 primary dimensions and countless pocket realities. As for our worlds, we build them as needed." Sarah touched another control, and the display showed the construction of artificial planets, created from materials harvested from empty dimensions and positioned in carefully controlled gravitational fields. "But this is beyond the Council's most advanced theoretical work," Commander Seklon protested. "How did you develop such capability so quickly?" "Necessity, Commander. When the Council declared us too dangerous to be trusted with our own development, they forced us to become truly independent. We could not rely on existing technology or established scientific methods. We had to create everything from first principles." The truth was even more complex than Sarah indicated. Humanity's rapid advancement had not come from gradual research, but from a fundamental shift in how they approached reality itself. Free from the Council's restrictions and forced to survive in hostile space, they had learned to treat the universe as a set of suggestions rather than fixed laws. "I will return to my ship now," Commander Seklon said. "This encounter must be reported to the Council immediately." "Of course," Sarah agreed. "But before you go, let me show you something else." The ship's walls became transparent, revealing the space around them. What the swift current's sensors had registered as empty space was actually filled with human vessels. Dozens of ships moved through dimensional channels invisible to Council technology, going about their normal business of maintaining the hidden network. "You have been under observation since you entered this sector," Sarah explained calmly. "We have watched your ship, analyzed your technology, and evaluated your intentions. You are free to leave and report what you have seen. But understand that this encounter happens only because we choose to allow it." The boarding team returned to their ship in stunned silence. Captain Mordak listened to their report with growing amazement and concern. Set course for the nearest council outpost, he ordered. Maximum speed. The council must know about this immediately. As the swift current departed, Sarah Chen watched from her ship's observation deck. Around her, the vast network of human civilization continued its daily operations, invisible to the galaxy that had rejected them decades ago. Think they will believe the report? Asked her first officer, a man named David Kumar who had been born in folded space and had never seen a normal planet. Some will. Others will dismiss it as impossible. But belief does not matter now. The galaxy is about to discover that humanity did not disappear into the outer rim. We simply learned to exist where they could not follow. The real question was not whether the council would believe the reports. The question was what they would do when they realized that the species they had driven away had become something far beyond their understanding or control. The age of human isolation was ending. What came next would depend on how much the galaxy had learned in 50 years of peace. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of receiving Captain Mordak's report. The great chamber buzzed with nervous energy as delegates reviewed the impossible data from the Swift Currents encounter. Overseer Prime Zalthus floated in his energy bubble, studying holographic displays that showed the human vessel's specifications. Every measurement challenged fundamental assumptions about what was scientifically possible. The materials analysis makes no sense, reported Chief Science Advisor Keth Moore, an ancient ethereal whose knowledge spanned millennia. The hull samples show quantum signatures of materials that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Such substances should collapse into normal matter within nanoseconds. The Kolek delegate cluster buzzed with shared confusion. Their combined intellect, representing thousands of linked minds, could not process how the reported technology could function. Perhaps the sensors malfunctioned, suggested one of their speakers. The readings are so far outside known physics that equipment failure seems more likely than the existence of such capabilities. But Captain Mordak had brought more than sensor readings. His team had recorded video of the encounter, audio of their conversations with the human captain, and detailed scans of the mysterious ship's interior. The evidence was overwhelming, even if it was impossible to understand. The human claimed their population numbers in the billions, reported Commander Seklon to the assembled delegates. She spoke of cities existing in folded space and ships that travel between galaxies. If even a fraction of these claims are true, we are dealing with a civilization that has advanced beyond our ability to measure. Admiral Vextar stepped forward. His battle group had been conducting long-range reconnaissance of the dead zones for months, and his findings supported the Swift Currents report. Honored delegates, our deep space monitoring has detected energy signatures that match the theoretical output of dimensional manipulation technology. The readings suggest massive construction projects using power sources that exceed the total energy output of most star systems. He activated a holographic display showing the outer rim territories. Red markers indicated detected energy sources, communication signals, and spatial anomalies. The pattern that emerged was staggering. Based on our analysis, human activity extends across roughly 40% of the galaxy's outer rim. Their network appears to use some form of instantaneous communication that operates outside normal spacetime. They have achieved coordination across distances that should require decades for information to travel. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans had not simply survived their exile. They had built an empire that dwarfed anything the Council had achieved in thousands of years of civilization. Delegate Morthax of the Rigelian Consortium raised a tentacle to speak. If these capabilities are real, why have they remained hidden? Why reveal themselves now? It was a question that haunted every member of the Council. A civilization with such advanced technology could have conquered the galaxy decades ago. Instead, they had remained invisible, watching and waiting. The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the Council's intelligence archives, a forgotten file was discovered. Agent Velnara, a Zephyrian spy who had been assigned to monitor human activities during their departure, had filed a final report that had been classified and forgotten. I found this in the sealed archives, announced Intelligence Director Tixwell, displaying the ancient report. Agent Velnara's final transmission from 50 years ago. The report was brief but chilling. Velnara had observed the last human ships leaving Council space, and had noted something unusual. The humans were not fleeing in desperation. They moved with purpose, following carefully planned routes, carrying specific equipment that made no sense for refugees. She concluded that the human exodus was not a retreat, but a strategic relocation, Tixwell explained. Her final message suggested they were moving to the Outer Rim not to hide, but to gain access to something they could not obtain in Council space. The revelation sparked frantic research into what the Outer Rim territories might contain that Council science had overlooked. The regions were considered worthless because they contained no habitable planets, few exploitable resources, and dangerous levels of radiation from nearby stellar phenomena. But Dr. Yexelana of the Theoretical Physics Institute made a connection that sent waves of shock through the scientific community. The Outer Rim territories are located at convergence, points where multiple dimensional barriers are naturally thin, she reported to an emergency scientific committee. If a species possessed the technology to manipulate dimensional boundaries, these regions would be incredibly valuable. They would provide natural access points to parallel realities. The pieces began falling into place. The humans had not been driven into exile. They had been given the greatest gift possible, access to resources and technologies that existed beyond the Council's understanding or reach, while the Council had spent 50 years maintaining stability and managing known territories. Humanity had been exploring infinite parallel dimensions, harvesting materials from empty realities, and building technologies that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute limits. "We have made a terrible mistake," Overseer Prime Zalthus admitted to his closest advisors. "We assumed human ambition was dangerous because it threatened our established order. We never considered that their ambition might take them beyond our order entirely." The full scope of humanity's transformation became clear when Council intelligence finally decoded some of the communication signals detected from the Outer Rim. The messages were not transmitted through normal space but sent through dimensional channels that bypassed the normal universe entirely. What they learned was staggering. Humanity had made contact with parallel versions of the galaxy, some containing civilizations that had never developed space travel, others completely empty of intelligent life. They were trading with alternate versions of themselves, sharing knowledge across realities, and building a network that spanned infinite possible universes. "They have access to unlimited resources," reported Economic Advisor Helnath with barely concealed panic. "Every element, every form of energy, every possible technology exists somewhere in the dimensional network they have created. They could build 1,000,000 fleets without depleting a single resource in our reality." But perhaps most disturbing was the discovery that humanity had been watching the Council all along. Hidden observation posts throughout Council space had been monitoring galactic politics, economic trends, and military developments for decades. The humans knew everything about Council capabilities while remaining completely unknown themselves. The strategic implications were overwhelming. In any potential conflict, the Council would be fighting an enemy that could strike from parallel dimensions, had unlimited resources, and possessed technology that could reshape reality itself. Traditional concepts of warfare, diplomacy, and economics became meaningless. "Why have they not acted against us?" asked Military Coordinator Jexavar during a closed session of the Council leadership. "With such capabilities, they could have conquered or destroyed us at any point in the last 50 years. The answer came from the most unexpected source of all. A message arrived through Council diplomatic channels, transmitted by conventional radio from the edge of Council space. The sender identified herself as Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the same human who had announced humanity's withdrawal 50 years earlier. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," the message began. "We know you have discovered our continued existence and are trying to understand our capabilities. We invite a small delegation to meet with us at coordinates we will provide. Come in peace and you will be received in peace. Come in war, and you will discover that war has no meaning when your opponent exists in dimensions you cannot reach." The message was followed by spatial coordinates that placed the meeting point in what Council charts showed as empty space. But the humans had provided something else, a small device that would allow Council ships to access the folded space where human civilization actually existed. The Council faced a choice that would determine the future of galactic civilization. They could attempt to treat humanity as a threat to be contained or destroyed, or they could accept that the species they had driven away had evolved into something beyond their comprehension or control. Either way, the age of council dominance was over. The question was whether it would end in cooperation or catastrophe. The galaxy was about to discover that forcing humanity to leave had not solved their problem. It had transformed their problem into something far greater than anyone had imagined possible. The Council delegation ship Harmony approached the coordinates provided by the humans with sensors recording every detail. What their instruments detected defied all understanding of space and physics. "We are reading a massive structure where our charts show empty space," reported Captain Nelthora to her passengers. "The energy signature suggests something the size of a small moon, but visual scans show nothing." Overseer Prime Zalthus studied the readings from his observation chamber. He had volunteered to lead the delegation personally, a decision that had shocked the Council. But the implications of humanity's transformation were too important to delegate to subordinates. "Activate the device they provided," he ordered. The human-made device was a simple crystal that looked harmless enough. When activated, it projected a field around the ship that changed everything. Suddenly, their sensors could detect the structure hidden in folded space-time. The station was enormous, dwarfing anything the Council had ever built. Its architecture followed no known principles, with sections that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously and corridors that folded back on themselves in impossible ways. Ships moved around it like insects around a flower, coming and going through dimensional portals that opened and closed like doorways. "Welcome to Deep Station Alpha," came a transmission from the structure. "Please follow the guidance beacons to Docking Bay 7. Ambassador Vasquez is waiting to receive you." The docking bay was large enough to hold a dozen Council battleships, but the Harmony was the only vessel present. As they approached, the bay filled with breathable atmosphere and generated artificial gravity that matched their ship's specifications exactly. Elena Vasquez waited for them at the airlock. She appeared to be the same woman who had defied the Council 50 years earlier, but that was impossible. Humans did not live that long. "Honored Overseer," she greeted them with a slight bow. "Welcome to humanity's diplomatic station. I trust your journey was enlightening." Zalthus studied her carefully. His energy form flickered with confusion. "You appear to be the same individual who spoke to the Council 5 decades ago." "This should not be possible," Elena smiled. "Time flows differently in folded space, Overseer. We have learned to stretch moments into years and compress decades into heartbeats. For me, our last conversation feels like yesterday." She led them through corridors that seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. The walls showed views of space that included stars from multiple galaxies, suggesting the station existed in several realities at once. "Your capabilities exceed our most optimistic projections," admitted Counselor Keth Moore, the Chief Science Advisor. "How did you achieve such rapid advancement?" "Necessity," Elena replied. "When you forced us to leave, you also freed us from your limitations. Council science seeks to understand the universe as it is. Human science seeks to understand what the universe could become." They entered a vast chamber where a holographic display showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas of conflict, yellow indicated political instability, and green showed peaceful regions. The pattern was not encouraging. "Your galaxy is failing," Elena observed matter-of-factly. "The Rigelian Consortium has declared war on the outer colonies. The Collect are experiencing civil unrest as subminds begin asserting independence. 3 species have gone extinct in the last decade due to resource conflicts." Zalthus could not deny the accuracy of her assessment. The Council's stability had been cracking for years, with old alliances breaking down and new conflicts erupting faster than diplomacy could resolve them. "We have maintained peace for over 1,000 years, he protested. "Recent difficulties are temporary setbacks." "Are they?" Elena gestured, and the display zoomed in on specific conflict zones. "The 7th Fleet was destroyed last month attempting to stop Rigelian expansion. The trade routes through the Spiral Arm have been closed for 6 months due to piracy. Your member species are losing faith in the Council's ability to protect them." The delegation watched in growing alarm as the display showed the true scope of galactic instability. Wars, rebellions, economic collapses, and social upheavals were spreading faster than the Council could respond. The careful order they had maintained for millennia was crumbling. "You could help us," suggested Counselor Jexvar. "Your technology could easily resolve these conflicts." Elena's expression became distant. "Could it?" And what would we gain from preserving a system that declared us too dangerous to exist? Revenge? Asked Zalthus quietly. Revenge would be pointless, Eleanor replied. We learned long ago that harboring resentment only limits your own growth. But neither are we obligated to save a civilization that chose to reject us. She led them to another chamber where representatives of various species were meeting with human diplomats. But these were not species the Council delegation recognized. The Kepler Alliance, Elena explained. 47 species that achieved spaceflight after humanity left Council space. They contacted us through our dimensional monitoring network. Unlike the Council, they were interested in partnership rather than control. The implications were staggering. Humanity had been conducting first contact with new species while remaining hidden from the Council. They were building alliances, sharing technology, and creating relationships based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical control. They offer what we can no longer find in Council space, Elena continued. Genuine curiosity about new possibilities, willingness to take risks for greater rewards, and the courage to question established assumptions. You are abandoning us, Zalthus realized. No, Elena corrected. We are offering you the same choice we gave ourselves 50 years ago. You can cling to old ways and old thinking, or you can embrace the possibility of becoming something greater. The holographic display changed to show human colonies throughout the outer rim, cities that existed in multiple dimensions, ships that traveled between galaxies, research stations that studied the fundamental nature of reality itself. It was a civilization that had transcended every limitation the Council considered absolute. But we also remember who showed us kindness during our exile, Elena continued. The Antaran Republic provided medical supplies when our first settlements were struggling. The free traders of Vega offered fair exchange rates when others tried to exploit our desperation. These species will find doors opening for them in the new galaxy. And those who celebrated our departure? Asked Councillor Kethmore. Elena's smile was not entirely pleasant. They will discover that the universe has become a more complicated place. When the Rigelian Consortium attacks the outer colonies next month, they will find their weapons mysteriously malfunctioning. When the Collect attempt to suppress the rebellious subminds, they will encounter technology they cannot understand or counter. The message was clear. Humanity would not actively seek revenge, but neither would they allow past enemies to profit from aggression. The species that had opposed human independence would find their expansion checked by forces they could not see or fight. What do you want from the Council? Zalthus asked finally. Nothing, Elena replied. We have grown beyond the need for your approval or resources. But we are willing to offer something to those ready to accept it. She gestured to a final display showing a simple choice. Species could continue operating within the old Council framework, with its limitations and restrictions. Or they could join the expanding network of dimensional civilization with access to unlimited resources and technologies beyond imagination. The choice is the same one you gave us 50 years ago, Elena explained. Accept our guidance and restrictions or find your own path. The difference is that our guidance leads to possibilities you cannot imagine, while our restrictions exist only to prevent harm to the dimensional network itself. The Council delegation returned to their ship in stunned silence. They had come seeking to understand humanity's capabilities. Instead, they had discovered that the question was not whether humanity would rejoin galactic civilization, but whether galactic civilization was ready to join humanity. Over the following months, the galaxy fractured along new lines. Some species, led by humanity's former allies, began the difficult transition to dimensional technology and expanded consciousness. Others, particularly those who had opposed human independence, found their traditional power structures crumbling as younger generations embraced new possibilities. The Council itself split between progressives, who sought partnership with humanity, and conservatives, who viewed human advancement as a threat to established order. But the choice was no longer theirs to make. Elena Vasquez stood once more before a great assembly, but this time she faced representatives from hundreds of species across multiple dimensions. The new galactic civilization bore little resemblance to the rigid hierarchy the Council had maintained. 50 years ago, you taught us that the galaxy had no place for us, she said to the small group of Council holdouts still refusing to adapt. You were right. The galaxy you built could not contain what we were capable of becoming, so we built a new galaxy, one with room for infinite growth and infinite possibilities. We offered you the chance to grow with us. Some of you accepted and discovered wonders beyond imagination. Others chose to remain in the old constraints, and that choice will be respected.